May 12, 1945, Sørøya Island, northern Norway. The wind knifes across the fjord, carrying the last traces of winter, even though spring should have taken hold by now. Snow drifts cling to the jagged cliffs, and the surf slams against black volcanic rock. On the deck of a small Royal Norwegian Navy patrol craft, Lieutenant Arvid Lunde, aged 32, braces himself against the icy spray as he lifts his binoculars once more. "Keep her steady," he tells the helmsman, his voice tight, almost swallowed by the wind. The report said smoke, thin, white like a chimney not fully dead. Behind him, Corporal Henrik Madsen, a former resistance fighter now absorbed into the post-liberation command structure, checks the bolt on his captured MP40. "Germans didn't leave anything burning when they retreated," he mutters. "They usually blew it sky high." Lunde says nothing. He's thinking the same thing. Ahead, through the mist, a sliver of coastline comes into view, a shallow cove sheltered by a horseshoe of cliffs. But something stands out: straight lines, geometric shapes, the faint silhouette of man-made structures where there should only be rock and ice. Lunde focuses the binoculars and feels his heartbeat shift. Concrete, 2 bunkers, a steel door ajar, and smoke, just a breath of it curling out of a ventilation shaft. The war in Europe has been over for 5 days. Hitler is dead. German forces in Norway have surrendered. And yet here, on this isolated island, 200 kilometers north of Tromsø, something is still alive, or was very recently. The patrol boat nudges against the flat stones of the shoreline. Lunde disembarks first, boots crunching into frost. The air tastes of coal dust and something metallic, faint but sharp. "Tracks," Madsen whispers. "Kneeling, boot prints, fresh, maybe 2-3 hours old." Norwegian could be, but the spacing, German stride Musimo. "And see this," he points to a distinctive heel pattern. "Kriegsmarine coastal troops, standard issue." Lunde tightens his gloves, but they should have surrendered days ago. Madsen looks up, unless they weren't supposed to be found. The 2 men approach the bunker. Its concrete walls bear no markings, no unit symbols, no signage, just grey stone, built to vanish into the cliff. The steel door is half open, nudged inward by the wind, its hinges groaning softly. Inside, a narrow corridor stretches into darkness. The smell intensifies: coal smoke, machine oil, and something far more sterile, like disinfectant used in field hospitals. Lunde signals with a raised hand. The team forms up behind him, 3 sailors armed with British Sten guns and 2 resistance scouts carrying Mauser K28K rifles, scavenged from retreating Germans. Their breaths cloud in the frigid air. A generator hums faintly deeper inside the bunker. "Impossible," one sailor whispers. "The Germans disabled all their outposts." "Not this one," Lunde replies. They move forward cautiously, boots echoing against smooth concrete. The walls are thicker than standard Luftwaffe listening posts, reinforced, sound-damped, purpose-built for secrecy. They reach the first chamber and stop cold. A laboratory, but not the kind used for treating wounded soldiers. Stainless steel tables, microscopes, sealed glass containers with melted frost, coagulated around their bases. A map table with Norwegian Arctic markers, and on the floor, scattered papers, diagrams, handwritten notes in hurried German, charcoal sketches of coastlines. Madsen picks up one page. His brow tightens. These maps, he flips another sheet. They don't match German operational charts. Look here, black lines, routes under the ice shelves. And this Project Eisenabel, ever heard of it? Lunde hasn't, and he has spent years intercepting German transmissions. Another sailor lifts the lid of a metal case. Inside, small vials rest in cushioned slots, empty, but labelled with codes rather than chemical names. A clipboard nearby lists dates: April 6th, April 17th, May 3rd. The last entry, May 11th, yesterday. "Someone was here only hours ago," Lunde says, "and they took whatever was in these vials." A sudden clang echoes from deeper inside the bunker, metal striking metal. The team freezes. Madsen raises his MP40. Sounds like a bulkhead door, or someone closing one. Lunde's voice drops to a whisper. "Move, now, before they seal the whole place." They advance down another corridor, this one slanting downward. The air warms, slightly unnatural, for a bunker carved into frozen rock. Another sign that machinery is running somewhere below. The floor transitions from raw concrete to a smooth, dark material that reflects the lantern light like wet stone. Halfway down the slope, they find something unusual, a radio room stripped down to its wiring, panels removed, antenna components missing, but not destroyed taken. Someone evacuated deliberately, Madsen murmurs, not panicked. They removed all the encrypted equipment. Lunde kneels by the main console. On the floor, a single scrap of paper, a torn half of a message form, lies face down. He picks it up carefully. On the back, a handwritten notation. Letzte Phase, keine Gefangenen, final phase, no prisoners. Before he can process it, they hear another sound. Footsteps, slow, controlled, coming from the chamber ahead. Lunde motions for silence. The team spreads out, weapons raised, breath locked in their chests. The footsteps stop just beyond a heavy door, marked only with a single black stripe. A door that is slightly ajar. Lunde steps forward. His hand touches the cold steel. He pushes, and what lies beyond the threshold is nothing he or any Allied officer was prepared to see. May 12, 1945, Sorøya Island, northern Norway, deep inside the bunker. The heavy door swings inward with a hiss of stale, warm air. Lieutenant Arvid Lunde blinks once, hard, his eyes struggling to adjust to the strange glow illuminating the chamber. Unlike the concrete grey of the upper rooms, this lower hall is lined with brushed steel panels, seamless and cold, reflecting the white light of lamps bolted into the ceiling. The temperature is rung much too warm for a bunker cut into permafrost. A steady hum vibrates faintly beneath the floor, like a generator operating at low power. Corporal Madsen exhales slowly. This isn't standard Wehrmacht construction. No, Lunde whispers. This looks like something kept off the books. They step inside. The chamber is long and narrow, every surface meticulously clean, except for a trail of wet footprints leading from the far door toward a grated floor drain. The footprints are recent, still glistening, not yet dried. Madsen crouches, touching the edge of the print with his glove. Water, no mud. Someone washed themselves, or he eyes the drain uneasily. Something else washed off them. Lunde gestures to the far wall. Look there. 3 large map boards dominate an entire panel of wall space, illuminated by narrow overhead lights. But these aren't operational charts of Norway or naval patrol grids. These maps show the Barents Sea, the Arctic Circle, and a long winding chain of coastal inlets stretching east toward Murmansk. Red wax pencil marks run across them, circles, arrows, notations in sharp German handwriting. One line stands out, a curved route sweeping far north, away from shipping lanes, toward a cluster of tiny islands near the ice pack. Next to it, a label Sector 4, nicht kartiert Sector 4, uncharted. Madsen shakes his head. No German maps include this sector. Nobody's maps do. Lunde approaches the central table, where instruments lie scattered: a sextant, 3 waterproof notebooks, a pair of German marine binoculars marked with the eagle and swastika insignia. But something else draws his attention: a thick leather portfolio, sealed with a red wax stamp bearing only 2 letters. A.H. He frowns. Admiral High. Admiral Hummel. Madsen's tone darkens. Or the other name those initials could be. Before Lunde can answer, a metallic click echoes from behind the steel pillars lining the chamber. The sailors turn instantly, weapons raised. A narrow service hatch swings open slowly, deliberately. A figure steps through. A German, or rather, what remains of one. The man is gaunt, cheeks hollow, uniform half-buttoned and soaked with sweat. His Kriegsmarine greatcoat is missing. Instead, he wears a laboratory apron, smeared with dark stains. His eyes bloodshot. Unfocused lock onto the Norwegian team, with a mixture of exhaustion and quiet resignation. He doesn't reach for a weapon. He raises his hands. Bitte, he rasps. Nicht schießen. Lunde steps forward cautiously. Identify yourself. The man swallows hard, throat raw. Oberfeldwebel Dietrich Keller, formerly of Marine Artillery Abteilung 507. He sags slightly. You're too late. They've already gone. Madsen tightens his grip on the MP40. Who, how many? Keller's gaze drifts toward the door behind him. Another steel barrier, sealed shut with a rotating wheel lock. 3 officers, he whispers. and the cargo they were ordered to protect at any cost. Lunde glances at the lab tables, the missing vials, the strange maps, the uncharted routes. What cargo? Keller hesitates, as if struggling with the weight of an oath long past usefulness. They said it was for the Endsieg, the final victory. Even after Berlin fell, even after the capitulation order. He rubs his forehead with trembling fingers. We weren't told what it was, only that it came from Trondheim by U-boat in sealed containers. Only the Hauptmann and 2 Wissenschaftsoffiziere were allowed to handle it. And where did they go? Lunde presses. Keller's voice cracks, north beyond the charts, to an island used only for special trials. Madsen stiffens. Trials for what? Keller closes his eyes. I don't know. But the officers said the files must never fall into Allied hands, and that if captured, we were to destroy this base. But the explosives, he points weakly to a crate. They took them when they left. Lunde exchanges a glance with Madsen. Someone fled this base only hours ago, taking equipment, radio parts, and whatever cargo had been stored here. Keller suddenly sways. Lunde catches him instinctively. What happened to you? Lunde asks. Keller's voice becomes a whisper. Gas leak in the lower chamber. They opened something while preparing it for transport. I wasn't supposed to be there. His breath shakes. It burns the lungs. They locked the chamber and fled. I barely escaped through the maintenance shaft. The sailors shift uneasily. One mutters, chemical weapons, but Keller shakes his head violently. Not gas, not something we made. He looks up, eyes haunted. Something frozen, something dug out from under the ice. Before Lunde can press him further, Keller's body jerks with a harsh spasm, his breathing suddenly shallow, broken, desperate. He collapses against Lunde's shoulder, gasping. Get him outside, Lunde orders. He needs air now. 2 sailors lift the collapsing German and hurry toward the hallway, boots pounding. But as they reach the door, Keller grips Lunde's sleeve with surprising strength, one final breath forcing its way out. Don't let them open it. His hand falls limp. The chamber seems to grow colder, despite the unnatural warmth radiating from its steel walls. Madsen steps beside Lunde. We need to open that inner door, find the lower chamber he escaped from. Lunde stares at the sealed wheel lock, the footprints, the missing equipment, the unnatural heat, and the dying man's warning thrum in his skull. Something was removed from this place. Something the officers didn't want the world to see. And something else, whatever Keller fled from, still lies behind that door. Lunde grips the wheel lock. It turns with a groan. He pushes the door inward, and the darkness beyond swallows the light of the chamber. May 12th, 1945. Soraya Island. Inner access corridor, beneath the abandoned base. The moment Lieutenant Arvid Lunde steps past the threshold, a heavy, oppressive warmth presses against his face. The air tastes strange sweet at first, then bitter, like heated metal mixed with antiseptic. His boots sink slightly into a rubber-coated floor, glistening with condensation. Behind him, Corporal Madsen sweeps the beam of his lantern forward, revealing a long descent into shadow. No markings, no unit stamps, no storage numbers typical of German engineering. Instead, the walls are lined with pipes wrapped in frost, despite the heat, an impossibility that makes Lunde's skin crawl. 30 meters in, they find scorch marks across the floor, not explosive, chemical. The residue is pale, powdery, almost chalk-like, as though something hot touched the surface, far colder than it should have been. Madsen crouches, rubbing the residue between his gloves. Burn pattern doesn't match fuel or munitions, more like something thawed too fast. Lunde presses on. The corridor widens into a large, circular chamber. The temperature jumps again, stifling, humid, wrong for a bunker carved into Arctic rock. A large observation window dominates one side of the room, its glass cracked outward from the inside. Below the shattered pane lies a reinforced platform, and on it, something unmistakably out of place, a containment crate made of timber and steel bracing, now forced open as though from internal pressure. The stenciled markings still visible along the side read, Ice Transport, nur mit Schutzanzug öffnen, Ice Transport, only open with protective gear. Madsen circles the crate, lantern shaking faintly. The interior is lined with straw, insulation cloth, and shards of thick ice beginning to melt into cloudy puddles. No sign of what was inside. Whatever they took, Madsen says, it wasn't a weapon we've seen before. Lunde notices deep gouges along the metal rim, fresh, jagged, made by tools or something prying from within, but Keller's dying words echo in his thoughts. Don't let them open it. He steps toward the broken observation window. On the far side of the chamber, the floor is stained with dark streaks leading toward a service hatch, torn partially free from its mounting. Not cut, not unscrewed, ripped outward. A sailor behind them shivers. Sir, Keller said they opened something by accident. What if it wasn't meant to be opened at all? Lunde silences him with a gesture. This base wasn't abandoned. It was vacated under duress. He scans the platform once more. More footprints, more dragging marks, a set of officers' boot prints leading away. The escaping Germans went through the opposite corridor toward the submarine pen indicated on the upper level maps. They fled with the remaining containers, but something else might not have. Madsen's voice tightens, tracks leading out. But look here. A set comes back toward the platform. Lunde follows the marks irregular, smeared, as if the person was stumbling or injured. The trail ends near the shattered glass, where dried blood crusts the edge. Whoever came back here, Lunde murmurs, didn't leave again. A sudden metallic clang echoes from deeper inside the restricted corridor, the same direction as the torn hatch. A slow, dragging scrape follows, then silence. The sailors tense, fingers tightening around triggers. The air feels heavier, suffocating. As the dim bulbs flicker overhead, Lunde raises his Sten gun, voice low and steady. Form up. Whatever happened here, it isn't over. We move. The team advances toward the torn hatch, toward the source of the sound, toward the last place Keller tried to warn them about. The corridor ahead breathes warm steam into the darkness, like something alive. May 12, 1945. Lower maintenance corridor, subterranean level. The torn hatch hangs from a single hinge, its metal edges bent outward as though struck repeatedly from within. Lieutenant Lunde grips the wheel of his Sten gun tighter as he steps over the torn frame. The air beyond is shockingly warm, almost sauna-like, yet the walls are rimmed with frost. Where pipes have burst under sudden temperature swings, Lunde gestures forward, Madsen leads, lantern slicing a trembling beam through the steam-filled passage. The corridor narrows into a service tunnel, barely wide enough for a man to stand upright. Thick insulated pipes run overhead, some cracked, some dripping hot condensation that spatters the floor in hissing droplets. Far ahead, a dim red glow pulses like a heartbeat, the emergency light of a sealed control room. Lunde hears it, then not footsteps, not machinery, but the unmistakable sound of laboured breathing. Human, weak, hurt, he moves faster, boots splashing through shallow puddles. They round a bend and find a man slumped against the wall, a German officer, Hauptmann rank, judging by the collar tabs bareheaded, face grey with exhaustion. His uniform tunic is unbuttoned, sleeves rolled up, sweat soaking through the fabric. An empty holster dangles from his belt. He looks up as Lunde approaches, eyes hollow. Zu spät. You shouldn't be here. He coughs, spitting dark fluid. We tried to contain it. Lunde kneels, keeping his Sten raised. Contain what your men fled. Keller is dead. The Hauptmann squeezes his eyes shut. Keller. He opened the crate without orders. The shock thaw. It caused the reaction. We weren't prepared. Not at this temperature. Reaction to what Madsen growls. The officer opens his trembling hand. Within it lies a sheet of brittle insulation cloth, stained with frost burns. It wasn't weaponized. It wasn't meant to be touched. The samples came from excavation surveys near Novaya Zemlya, frozen for we don't know how many years. The scientist said the core was stable only under ice. He points down the corridor with a shaking finger. One container ruptured when he mishandled the seal. The vapor. It burns the lungs. We sealed the chamber to prevent spread. Lunde exchanges a tense look with Madsen. This aligns with everything they've seen: scorch marks, frost shock, Keller's collapsing lungs. Nothing supernatural, just catastrophic mishandling of unknown frozen material. The kind Arctic expeditions sometimes unearthed without fully understanding. Lunde asks, Your officers, where did they go? Out. To the submarine pen. They took the intact containers. They planned to deliver them to Narvik for evacuation. Lunde stiffens. But Narvik surrendered 2 days ago. The officer gives a pained laugh. They didn't know. No radio, no updates. Just orders to preserve the cargo at all costs. His voice weakens. I stayed behind to seal the leak. His gaze drifts toward a steel bulkhead at the end of the tunnel, glowing faintly red from the emergency lamp above. Behind that door, the chamber collapsed. Heat ruptures. Pressure. No one survived. As if on cue, another distant rumble makes dust drift from the ceiling. The insulation over their heads pops with a sharp crack as one more overheated pipe gives way. The Hauptmann takes a shuddering breath. If you open that door, the remaining pressure pockets will vent. The temperature shift will ignite the vapors. Lunde steps back, realization hitting like a hammer. You're saying it will explode? Yeah. Enough force to bring the whole lower level down. Lunde weighs his options. The officers who fled are already gone. The sealed chamber contains nothing but hazard. And Keller's warning now makes clear sense. Don't let them open it, because doing so would kill everyone inside. Madsen nods grimly. We need to get out, now. Lunde rises, signaling the team to withdraw. But before they can move, the German officer grabs Lunde's sleeve with surprising strength. Listen, he rasps. Destroy the maps. Destroy the charts. If the Soviets find Sector 4, they'll dig deeper. They'll find more. Leave it buried. His hand falls away as he loses consciousness. Lunde hesitates only a second before lifting the officer over his shoulder. We're taking him with us, he orders. Alive or dead, he's evidence. They retreat through the steaming corridor, pipes hissing like serpents overhead, the red warning lights pulsing behind them as though marking a heart slowly dying. When they reach the main lab again, the distant rumble echoes once more, longer, deeper. A chain reaction is beginning. This place is minutes from tearing itself apart. May 12th, 1945. Upper bunker level, approaching the exit. The heat from the collapsing lower chamber rises through the corridors in slow, heavy waves. Lieutenant Lunde pushes forward with the half-conscious German Hauptmann slung over his shoulder, while Madsen leads the way, sweeping corners with disciplined precision. The sailors follow close, their boots hammering against the concrete floor in a rhythm that mirrors the rumbling beneath them. The bunker vibrates like something alive, pipes expanding under stress, steel joints groaning as temperature and pressure battle inside sealed pockets. Move, Lunde shouts, as a light fixture bursts overhead, showering the corridor in shards of hot glass. They sprint past the laboratory, where the strange maps and equipment still lie scattered. One sailor pauses instinctively near the map wall until Madsen yanks him back. Orders were clear, destroy or leave. We don't have time to do either. Smoke begins to seep from vents along the ceiling. The once sterile smell of disinfectant now mixes with burning insulation and hot oil. Lunde feels the Hauptmann's shallow breaths against his back, barely there, but present. As they reach the final stairwell, a violent tremor shakes the bunker. A thunderous crack echoes from below. The floor jumps beneath their feet. Dust rains down. That's the chamber giving way. Madsen shouts, "We have seconds." They scramble to the surface entry, the heavy steel door still partially open from their arrival. A blast of Arctic wind slams into them the moment they push through, cold, brutal, almost shocking after the oppressive heat below. Outside, the sky has turned grey, clouds rolling in fast over the Suroya coastline. The sea is rougher now, waves slapping against the rocks with renewed force. Their patrol boat bobs violently in the surf, the helmsman waving frantically behind the team. A deep metallic roar shakes the ground. Lunde doesn't look back, he simply runs, hauling the officer toward the boat as the sailors help push him aboard. One by one, the team jumps in. Madsen is the last to climb over the railing. The moment his boots hit the deck, a sound like a collapsing mine shaft erupts behind them. The cliff face quivers. The bunker's outer wall buckles inward, expelling a plume of hot steam and concrete dust into the freezing air. The sea responds instantly, the shockwave rolling outward in a low, heavy swell that lifts the boat and drops it again, hard. Full throttle. Lunde orders. The engine growls and the small craft punches forward, cutting across choppy water as chunks of rock tumble from the cliff behind them. A second rumble follows deeper, final, and the entire entrance collapses, sealing the bunker under tons of stone. Within moments, the cove settles again, the smoke dissipating into the rising storm. Only the faint smell of burnt metal lingers. Minutes later, when they are far enough from the shoreline, Lunde finally allows himself to exhale. The Hauptmann lies on the deck, breathing shallow but steady. Madsen kneels beside him, checking his pulse. He'll live, Madsen says. Long enough to testify, at least, Lunde nods, gripping the railing as wind buffets the boat. And the officers who fled with the containers, Madsen's jaw tightens. If they reached the submarine pen, they could be anywhere in the fjords by now. Or the sea took them, one sailor mutters. Storms rising. Lunde gazes toward the darkening horizon. Either way, he says quietly, whatever they carried won't surface again easily. A silence settles over the boat as the distance between them and the ruined base grows. The war in Europe is over, but this operation was built on secrecy that didn't end with surrender, and now its last clues lie buried under a collapsing mountain, washed away by the Norwegian Sea. May 14th, 1945. Kirkenes Military Command, Northern Norway. A cold rain taps against the tin roof of the field headquarters as Lieutenant Arvid Lunde finishes his written report. The room is cramped and dim, lit only by a single desk lamp that flickers whenever the generator sputters. The Hauptmann, now identified as Hauptmann Ernst Volker, lies in the infirmary tent outside, his lungs damaged by exposure to the ruptured container. 2 medics say he will survive, though his breathing remains shallow. Lunde's uniform still smells faintly of burnt insulation and sea spray. Across from him, Major Sigurd Running of the Norwegian High Command reads the typed pages slowly, jaw tightening with each line. When he reaches the final paragraph, he places the report down carefully. You're certain no officer insignias were left, no operational codes, no dispatch logs. Lunde nods, nothing intact. Whatever they were doing at that base, they removed everything sensitive before we arrived. The maps were custom drawn, no official stamps, no naval signatures, purely internal. Running steeples his fingers, and the cargo. Lunde hesitates. We never saw the intact containers, only the ruptured one and the reaction it caused. Running leans forward. Reaction: rapid thaw, pressure shock, chemical vapor that burns the lungs. Whatever they transported, it wasn't weaponized in a traditional sense, but it was dangerous due to temperature instability, not chemical warfare. No signs of synthesis, no factory residues. The Hauptmann said it was recovered from an excavation site near Novaya Zemlya. Natural origin, frozen until mishandled. Running writes a short note, then looks at Lunde, and the surviving German officers. Lunde takes a breath. We traced their escape route to the old submarine pen, leftover footprints, track marks, discarded insulation wraps. But the sea was violent that night. If a U-boat was waiting, it might have departed before the storm peaked. If not, he lets the sentence hang. Running finishes it. The fjord probably swallowed them. He closes the folder with a soft thud. For now, the provisional government will file your findings under restricted wartime intelligence. London will receive a copy, Washington too, but Moscow, he shakes his head. They're already moving into Finnmark. They've been asking about German Arctic research. If they find any trace of Sector 4, Lunde cuts in firmly, they won't. The explosion collapsed the lower chambers. Whatever the officers left behind is buried. Running studies him for a long moment. Do you believe this was an isolated operation? Lunde thinks of the melted ice, the shattered crate, the frost-burned pipes, the desperate warning Keller spat out before dying. He thinks of the maps showing uncharted islands and the strange markings leading away from the major sea lanes. No, he replies. This was part of a larger project, and the men guarding it were acting under orders they refused to abandon, even after Germany surrendered. Outside, thunder rolls across the Norwegian coastline. The war is ending everywhere else, But the commanders in Kirkenes know the Arctic remains full of hidden outposts, half-destroyed depots, and retreating units still operating without communication. Running stands and extends a hand. You did well, Lieutenant. What you found or prevented may keep something dangerous from resurfacing. Lunde shakes it, though his mind is still trapped in the heat of the collapsing bunker, in the dying echo of Keller's voice. Don't let them open it. 2 hours later, as the rain settles into a steady drizzle, Lunde steps outside. The sea is calm now. The patrol boat bobs gently against the dock, as though the storm of 2 days prior never occurred. A medic waves from the infirmary tent. Lieutenant Volker is awake. He's asking for you. Lunde nods and walks across the wet gravel. The tent flap lifts. The German officer lies pale on the cot, oxygen mask over his face. When he sees Lunde, he raises one hand weakly. Lunde pulls a stool close. You said your officers were heading toward an extraction point. Is there anything else? Anything at all you didn't include earlier? Volker's voice is a hoarse whisper behind the mask. Only this. They carried orders to avoid every major harbour, every patrol route. They weren't fleeing the Allies. They were fleeing the Soviets. They said the Soviets were looking for the same thing. Lunde's pulse slows. The same thing as what Volker's eyelids flutter. The samples, a long trembling breath. We found them first, but we never understood them. His eyes drift shut. Exhaustion overwhelms him. Lunde remains seated, listening to the rain tapping the canvas, carrying the weight of words that feel far larger than the ruined bunker they escaped. That night, the Norwegian command files the entire incident under restricted classification. The maps seized from the laboratory are sealed. The surviving German officer is transferred to a secure medical station for interrogation. The bunker at Soroya collapses fully after another aftershock, and whatever the German officers carried north into the storm disappears from history, swallowed by sea, secrecy, or both.